The broken toy, the Varin diplomatic ship, came out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's largest space station. The ship was big and dark, built for war, but carrying peace this time. Inside sat Ambassador Kelth, a creature that would make most humans run away screaming. He stood 7 feet tall. His body was covered in dark green scales. His claws could cut through metal like paper. His eyes were yellow and never stopped moving, always looking for danger. But Kelth was not alone. With him were his 2 cubs, Raal and Nira. They were small versions of their father, only reaching his waist. Their scales were softer, lighter in color. Their claws were not yet sharp enough to cut anything dangerous. They were children, simple as that. The Varin were known across the galaxy as the greatest hunters. Other species told stories about them to scare their young ones. When Varin ships appeared in the star system, wise creatures ran away. But today, Kelth came to Earth for talking, not hunting. The humans wanted peace, and the Varin High Council had sent him to listen. Nira held something close to her chest during the whole journey. It was a small drone, about the size of a human's hand. The drone could float in the air and follow her own. It made soft beeping sounds that only she understood. It had been a gift from her mother, who had died 2 winters ago in a hunting accident. Nira never let the drone out of her sight. The Earth station was bright and noisy. Humans walked everywhere, talking and laughing. They were so small and soft, Kelth thought. No claws, no scales. Flat teeth that could not tear meat. How had these weak creatures survived long enough to reach the stars? It made no sense to him. A human woman named Supervisor Park greeted them and showed them to their rooms. The cubs were amazed by everything. They had never seen so many different species in one place. The station had traders from 12 different worlds, all buying and selling and talking. On the second day of their visit, something terrible happened. Nira was running through the observation deck, chasing Raal in a game their mother had taught them. The drone floated behind her, beeping happily. But Nira was not watching where she was going. She tripped over a cable on the floor. She fell hard, and the drone flew from her grip. It hit the metal wall with a loud crack. The drone fell to the ground. Its lights went dark. It stopped beeping. Nira picked it up with shaking claws. She pressed the button that always made it wake up. Nothing happened. She pressed it again and again. The drone stayed dark and silent. Then Nira began to cry. The sound a Varin cub makes when crying is not like human tears. It is a high, keening wail that hurts the ears. It is the sound of pure grief, the sound their ancestors made over fallen hunters. Nira's cry echoed through the observation deck, making humans stop and stare. Kelth rushed to his daughter. He took the drone from her claws and looked at it. The outer shell was cracked. Something inside rattled when he shook it. He understood immediately what had happened. The drone was broken. It was dead. Nira, he said gently, the machine has ended. Its journey is complete. No. Nira wailed. Mother gave it to me. Make it work again. Kelth felt a deep sadness. He wished he could help his daughter, but Varin did not fix things. This was their way. When something broke, you honored its service and let it go. When warriors fell in battle, you sang their death song and moved forward. You did not try to bring back what was lost. That was weakness. That was denial of the natural order. I cannot, Kelth said. Nothing can bring it back. You must say goodbye. Nira cried harder. Raal stood nearby, not knowing what to do. He had never seen his sister so upset. That was when Yuna appeared. She was a small human woman, shorter than both cubs even though she was fully grown. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot. Her hands were covered in dark stains from oil and grease. Her uniform said, "Station Engineer," on the chest. She had been walking past when she heard the crying. What happened? Yuna asked, kneeling down to look at Nira. She was not afraid of the Varin, even though one swipe of Kelth's claws could end her life. She only saw a crying child. Her machine is dead, Kelth said. It cannot be repaired. Yuna looked at the drone in his claws. May I see it? Kelth was confused. Why would this tiny human want a broken thing? But Nira was still crying, and he did not know what else to do. He handed the drone to Yuna. Yuna turned it over in her hands. She looked at the crack in the shell. She listened to the rattle inside. She pressed the power button and watched the lights stay dark. Then she smiled. I think I can fix this, she said. Kelth stared at her. That is not possible. It is broken. Broken things can be repaired, Yuna said simply. Come with me to my workshop. Nira stopped crying. She looked at the human woman with huge, wet eyes. You can bring it back to life? I can try, Yuna said. No promises. But I can try. The workshop was a small room filled with tools and parts. Machines covered every surface. Half-finished projects hung from the ceiling. Yuna cleared a space on her workbench and set the drone down gently. For 3 hours, she worked. Ra and Nira watched with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like this. Yuna opened the drone's shell and looked inside. She found the broken parts. She searched through boxes until she found replacements. She used tiny tools to remove old pieces and install new ones. She cleaned dirt from the circuits. She reconnected wires that had come loose. Kelth watched too, though he pretended not to care. What the human was doing went against everything he believed. Dead things were dead. You could not change that. It was the natural law. But then Yuna pressed the power button. The drone's lights blinked, once, twice. Then they glowed steady and bright. The drone rose from the workbench. It floated in the air. It made a soft beeping sound. Nira screamed with joy. She grabbed the drone and held it to her chest. She was laughing and crying at the same time. Raul was staring at Yuna like she was some kind of magical creature. You brought it back, Raul whispered. You brought it back from death. Yuna smiled and wiped oil from her fingers. It was just broken. Everything broken can be fixed if you try hard enough. Nira looked at the human woman. In that moment, something changed inside the cub. She would remember this day for the rest of her life. She would tell this story to everyone she met. Thank you, Nira said. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, Yuna said. Everything deserves a second chance. The cubs left with their father that evening. The diplomatic meetings ended. The Varin ship flew away into the darkness between stars. But Raul and Nira never forgot the human woman who could bring dead things back to life. And they would tell everyone. Whispers across the stars. 20 years passed in the blink of a star. Raul grew into a mighty warrior, just as his father had been. His scales turned dark and hard. His claws became sharp enough to cut starship metal. He led hunting parties across 3 star systems and never lost a single member of his pack. When other Varin spoke his name, they spoke it with respect. Nira took a different path. She became an explorer, traveling to worlds no Varin had ever seen. She mapped new star systems. She made first contact with species that had never met her kind. Her ship was small but fast, and she went wherever her curiosity took her. But no matter where Raul and Nira went, they told the same story. They told it around campfires on frozen moons. They told it in the great halls of Varin homeworld. They told it to anyone who would listen. The story of the human woman who could bring dead things back to life. At first, other Varin did not believe them. Fixing broken things was not possible. Everyone knew this. When something ended, it ended forever. That was the way of the universe, but Nira still had the drone. After 20 years, it still worked. She showed it to doubters and explained how the human had opened it up and replaced the broken parts. She showed them the tiny marks where Yuna had welded the shell back together. The doubters became believers, and they told others. The story spread beyond the Varine. It reached the Morath, a species made of living crystal. The Morath lived for thousands of years, but when their crystal bodies cracked, they died. No one could save them. No one even tried. The Morath heard the story of the humans and wondered if it could be true. The story reached the Feni, beings of gas and light who lived in the atmospheres of giant planets. The Feni had long ago accepted that damaged ones simply faded away. But now they heard about creatures who could stop the fading. They wanted to know more. The story reached the Hollow, a race of machines so old that no one remembered who built them. The Hollow had been breaking down for millions of years. Each generation was weaker than the last. They had accepted their slow death as unavoidable. But the story of the humans gave them something they had not felt in a very long time. It gave them hope. On Earth, no one knew any of this was happening, Commander. Taiho worked at the border station called Gateway 9. It was a quiet posting. Not much happened there, except the occasional trade ship passing through. Taiho spent most of his time doing paperwork and trying not to die of boredom. Then the ship started coming. The first one was a small Varine vessel. It arrived without warning and asked permission to dock. Taiho granted it, expecting traders. But the Varine who came aboard carried no goods to sell. Instead, they carried broken things. Machines that had stopped working. Tools that had fallen apart. Equipment that their people had marked for disposal. "We heard humans can fix these," the Varine captain said. "We will pay well." Taiho was confused, but he called the station engineers. The engineers were even more confused. But they looked at the broken items and shrugged. Most of the problems were simple. Burned out circuits. Loose connections. Worn parts that needed replacing. Within a day, they fixed everything. The Varine captain looked at the repaired equipment with amazement. He paid triple what the engineers asked for. Then he left, and Taiho thought that was the end of it. It was not the end. It was the beginning. More ships came. Varine ships. Then Morath ships. Then species Taiho had never even heard of. They all carried broken things. They all asked for repairs. They all watched with wide eyes as human engineers did what their own people said was impossible. Taiho sent a message to Admiral Jisoo at Earth Command. "Something strange is happening," he wrote. "Aliens are bringing us their garbage and treating us like gods when we fix it." Admiral Jisoo was a serious woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had fought in 3 wars and had seen many strange things in her life. But the reports coming from Gateway 9 made her curious. She traveled there herself to see what was happening. What she found amazed her. The station was crowded with alien ships. Beings from across the galaxy waited in long lines, holding broken machines and damaged equipment. Human engineers worked around the clock, fixing everything that came their way. The aliens paid in rare metals, advanced technology, valuable information. They gave far more than the repairs were worth. Why? Jisoo asked a Morath trader. "Why do you pay so much for such simple work?" The Morath's crystal body chimed as it spoke. "Because you do what we cannot. You bring dead things back to life. This is worth any price." Jisoo returned to Earth with a proposal. Humanity had found something valuable, she said. Not a weapon. Not a resource. Something better. They had found a purpose. The United Earth Council listened to her plan. Some thought it was foolish. Others thought it was brilliant. But in the end, they agreed to try. They called it the Restoration Initiative. Earth began training teams of engineers, mechanics, and technicians. These teams were sent to stations across human space. Their job was simple: fix what others had broken. repair what others had abandoned, rebuild what others had given up on. The news spread faster than any ship could travel. Humans could fix things. Humans would fix things. All you had to do was ask. Ships came from everywhere. The lines grew longer. The work grew harder. But the humans did not stop. They fixed farming equipment from agricultural worlds. They repaired medical devices from hospital ships. They rebuilt communication systems that had been silent for years. Engineer Hana worked at a station near the galactic core. She fixed 30 broken machines every day. She barely had time to eat or sleep. But every time she saw the look of wonder on an alien's face when their dead device came back to life, she felt it was worth it. "Why do you work so hard?" A Fenny asked her once. "Why do you care about our broken things?" Hannah thought about the question. She was tired. Her hands hurt. She had not seen her family in months. But she knew the answer. "Because broken things still have value," she said. "And everyone deserves a second chance." The Fenny did not understand at first. In their culture, damaged things were worthless. But watching Hana work, watching her care for each broken device like it mattered, the Fenny began to see things differently. Maybe the humans were right. Maybe nothing was truly beyond repair. But even as the restoration initiative grew, something was changing. The ships that came to human stations no longer carried just broken machines. Some of them carried something else. Something that would change everything. They carried the damaged, the dying, the lost. They carried souls that needed repair. And they brought them to the only species they believed could help. They brought them to the humans. The first Soul Station Kepler 7 floated in the darkness between two great nebulas. It was a quiet place, far from the busy trade routes. Most ships passed it without stopping. The crew liked it that way. They had time to breathe, time to think, time to live their simple lives among the stars. Then the Morith ship appeared. It came out of faster-than-light travel, badly damaged. Great cracks ran along its crystal hull. Atmosphere leaked from a dozen wounds. The ship was dying, and everyone could see it. Station Commander Bora sent rescue teams immediately. She expected to find survivors. She did not expect what she found. The rescue teams brought back only one passenger. A Morith elder named Velith. Velith was ancient. Her crystal body had once been clear and bright, filled with light that danced and sparkled. The Morith called this light their soul. It was their life force, their essence, everything that made them who they were. When the light faded, a Morith died. It was as simple as that. Velith's light was barely visible. Her crystal body was cracked in 17 places. Dark lines ran through her like broken glass. She should have been dead already. The only reason she lived was pure stubbornness. She refused to fade. Her family had brought her here. Her daughter. Her grandchildren. 3 generations of Morith who loved her and did not want to say goodbye. They had heard the stories about humans. They had heard that humans could fix anything. "Please," Velith's daughter begged. "Please save her." Station medic Yunji looked at the dying elder. She had treated many species in her career. She had saved lives that others said were lost. But she had never treated a Morith. No human had. Their biology was completely alien. They were not made of flesh and blood like most species. They were living crystal and light. How could anyone heal that? "I don't know if I can help," Yunji admitted. "I don't understand Morith physiology." "Then learn," Velith said. Her voice was weak, but her eyes still held fire. "I am not ready to fade. I have more to do. More to see. More to teach my grandchildren. If there is any chance, I will take it." Yunji looked at the dying elder for a long moment. She thought about all the time she had saved patients that others had given up on. She thought about her training, her experience, her skills. None of it applied here. She would be starting from nothing, but she also thought about what would happen if she said no. Velith would die. Her family would grieve. And the Morith would learn that humans could not really fix everything. The hope they had carried across the stars would turn to ash. Okay, Yoonji said. I'll try. She did not work alone. Xenobiologist Minho joined her. He had spent his life studying alien life forms. He had never studied a Morith up close, but he knew more about their biology than anyone else on the station. Engineer Hana came too. She understood how things were put together and how to fix them. Maybe crystal bodies followed similar rules. For 6 days, they worked without rest. Minho studied Velith's body under every scanner they had. He learned how Morith crystal grew and changed. He discovered that the cracks in her body were not just physical damage. They were also blocking the flow of light inside her. Her soul could not reach all parts of her body. That was why she was dying. Hannah designed new tools. Morith crystal was unlike any material she had ever worked with. Normal repair methods would not work. She had to invent new ones. She created a special bonding agent that could seal crystal cracks without blocking light. She built tiny injectors that could apply the agent precisely. Yoonji coordinated everything. She watched Velith's vital signs constantly. She adjusted the treatment when things went wrong. She talked to Velith through the long hours, keeping her awake, keeping her fighting. The Morith family waited outside. They did not eat. They did not sleep. They simply waited and hoped. On the 4th day, Velith's light grew weaker. The cracks were spreading faster than the team could seal them. Yoonji felt despair creeping into her heart. They were going to fail. Velith was going to die despite everything they had done. We need more light, Minho said suddenly. Her soul is not strong enough to heal. We need to give her more energy. How? Hannah asked. We cannot create Morith light. We do not have the technology. Yoonji thought about this. She thought about how human bodies healed. They needed energy too. They needed food and rest and warmth. Maybe Morith were not so different. Light is light, Yoonji said. Maybe any light will help. They built a chamber around Velith. They filled it with the brightest lights they could find. They aimed them at her crystal body from every direction. The lights were not Morith light. They were just ordinary light from ordinary machines. But it was worth trying. For 2 more days, Velith lay in the chamber of light. The team kept sealing her cracks. They kept watching. They kept hoping. On the 7th day, something happened. Velith's light, which had been dim and flickering, suddenly blazed bright. It filled her whole body. It pushed through the sealed cracks. It danced and sparkled like it had not done in years. Velith opened her eyes. I feel warm, she whispered. I feel alive. The team ran tests. They scanned her body. They checked everything twice. The results were clear. Velith was healing. The cracks were still there, but they were sealed. The light inside her was strong and growing stronger. She was going to live. When they told the family, the Morith made a sound that Yoonji had never heard before. It was like wind chimes in a storm. It was like music made of crystal. It was the sound of joy so deep that it could not be contained. You saved her soul, Velith's daughter said. You repaired what we thought was beyond repair. How can we ever thank you? Yoonji was too tired to answer. She simply smiled and sat down. She had not slept in 6 days. But she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt proud. She felt like she had done something that mattered. Word of what happened spread quickly. The Morith told everyone. They told it with the same wonder that Nira had felt when her toy came back to life. But this was bigger. This was not a machine. This was a soul. Humans could repair souls. The message reached every corner of the galaxy. It reached species who had never heard of humans before. It reached cultures that had given up hope long ago. It reached the broken and the dying and the lost, and they all began to move. They began to travel. They began to search for the creatures who could do the impossible. They came to human stations. They came to human colonies. They came to human ships floating alone in the darkness. They did not bring machines anymore. They brought themselves. The traumatized. The damaged. The beings their own species had abandoned. The ones who had been told they could not be saved. They brought their souls to the humans. And humanity, shocked and honored and terrified all at once, began the hardest work they had ever done. They began to heal them all. The weight of souls, the ships never stopped coming. Every day, more arrived at human stations. Every day, the lines grew longer. Every day, the burden grew heavier. The Restoration Initiative had become something no one had planned for. It had become a mission to heal the souls of the entire galaxy. Psychologist Zun worked at the largest restoration center, built on the red surface of Mars. The building was huge, designed to hold thousands of patients. It was always full. There was always a waiting list. There were always more broken souls than humans could help. Do-hyun had studied the human mind for 20 years. He thought he understood trauma. He thought he knew how to help people heal. But nothing had prepared him for this. His patients were not human. They were Varine warriors who had seen their families slaughtered. They were Morith children whose light had been damaged by accidents. They were Feni who had lost their connection to their people. They were Hollow whose ancient minds were falling apart. Each species had different minds, different emotions, different ways of being broken. Do-hyun had to learn everything from the beginning. Today, his patient was a young Varine named Keth. The warrior sat in the corner of the room, his scales dull, his eyes empty. He had not spoken in 3 months. He did not eat unless food was placed directly in front of him. He did not sleep unless exhaustion took him by force. Keth's father, Torin, had brought him here as a last hope. Torin was an old warrior, covered in scars from battles long past. His claws were chipped from years of fighting. His eyes held the weight of too many losses. What happened to him? Do-hyun asked. Torin told the story. Keth had been a soldier, young and proud. His unit had been ambushed by raiders near the outer rim. The battle lasted for hours. When it ended, Keth was the only survivor. He had watched every member of his unit die. He had been unable to save any of them. In Varine culture, Torin explained, a warrior who survives when his pack dies is considered cursed. Many believe he should have died with them. Some even say he is a coward for living. Is that what you believe? Do-hyun asked. Torin's claws tightened into fists. I believe my son is broken. I believe he needs help. I believe the humans are the only ones who might save him. His voice cracked. He is all I have left. His mother died years ago. If I lose him too. He could not finish the sentence. Do-hyun looked at Keth. The young warrior did not react. He stared at nothing, lost somewhere inside his own mind. Do-hyun had seen this before in human soldiers. They called it shell shock or trauma or a dozen other names. The mind broke under too much pain and retreated somewhere safe. Getting it to come back was the hardest work in the world. I'll try to help him, Do-hyun said. But I need you to understand something. I am not Varine. I do not understand your grief the way another Varine would. I cannot promise I will succeed. Torin looked at him with ancient, tired eyes. You do not need to understand our grief, human. You only need to stay. That is what your kind does. You stay with broken things until they heal. Do-hyun thought about those words for a long time after Torin left. He began meeting with Keth every day. At first, he simply sat in the room with him. He did not try to talk. He did not try to force anything. He just sat there, reading reports or doing paperwork, making sure Keth knew he was not alone. Days passed. Then weeks. Keth did not respond. Other humans might have given up. Other therapists might have declared the case hopeless. But Do-yoon remembered Torin's words. Stay with broken things until they heal. So he stayed. He learned Vareen morning songs from recordings in the station database. He played them softly during their sessions. The songs were harsh to human ears, full of growling notes and sharp rhythms. But Do-yoon noticed that Keth's breathing changed when they played. Something inside him was listening. He learned about Vareen pack bonds. In their culture, warriors who fought together became family. Losing a pack was like losing part of yourself. The grief was physical, not just emotional. Keth's body was mourning as much as his mind. He researched Vareen funeral rites. Normally, survivors spoke the names of the fallen and described their greatest moments. This was how Vareen said goodbye. But Keth had never done this. He had never mourned properly. He was stuck in the moment of their deaths, unable to move forward. 3 months into the treatment, Do-yoon tried something new. He brought pictures of Keth's fallen unit. He had gotten them from military records. He placed them on the table in front of Keth. Tell me about them, he said softly. Tell me who they were. Keth did not respond. He stared at the pictures with empty eyes. This one, Do-yoon said, pointing to a female Vareen with unusual white scales. What was her name? Silence. Was she brave? Was she kind? Was she funny? Did she have family waiting for her? Still nothing. Do-yoon kept trying. Every day he asked about the fallen warriors. Every day he got no response. But he did not stop. He stayed. One day, 5 months after the treatment began, something changed. Do-yoon was pointing to another picture when Keth's claw moved. It was tiny, barely noticeable. But his claw touched the image of a young male Vareen with scars on his snout. Malik, Keth whispered. It was the first word he had spoken since arriving on Mars. Do-yoon felt his heart jump. He kept his voice calm. Tell me about Malik. For a long moment, Keth was silent. Then he spoke again. His voice was rough and broken, like a machine that had not been used in years. He was my brother, not by blood, by choice. We grew up together. We trained together. We joined the same unit because we could not imagine fighting without each other. Tears began to fall from Keth's yellow eyes. Do-yoon had not known Vareen could cry. He had thought their eyes were too different. But grief was universal. I could not save him, Keth said. He died in my arms. He told me to live. He made me promise. But how can I live when he is gone? Do-yoon moved closer. He did not touch Keth. He did not know if that was appropriate in Vareen culture. But he sat near him, close enough that the warrior could feel his presence. You live because he asked you to, Do-yoon said. You honor him by keeping that promise. The dead do not want us to die with them. They want us to carry their memory forward. Keth wept. The sound was harsh and painful, but it was also healing. He was finally mourning. He was finally letting the grief out instead of letting it destroy him from inside. When Torin came to check on his son that evening, he found Keth speaking for the first time in months. The old warrior collapsed to his knees. He did not try to hide his tears. Thank you, he said to Do-yoon. Thank you. Do-yoon nodded. He was exhausted. This one case had taken months and drained everything he had. And there were thousands more waiting. The weight of souls was crushing humanity. They could not save everyone. They did not have enough healers, enough time, enough strength. That night, Admiral Jisoo called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. We cannot continue like this, she said. Our people are burning out. Our resources are exhausted. We are trying to heal an entire galaxy, and we are failing. Counselor Seon-woo stood. He was old and tired. He had lost his own daughter to war many years ago. He understood grief better than most. Then perhaps, he said slowly, it is time we stop trying to do this alone. Perhaps it is time we taught others what we know. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what he meant. It was time to share the gift. It was time to teach the galaxy how to heal itself. The Restoration, the great station called Covenant Prime, floated at the center of known space. It was neutral ground, built centuries ago for peace talks between warring species. Now it held something more important than any peace treaty. The Galactic Restoration Academy. The station had been transformed. What was once a cold diplomatic hall was now a warm place of learning. Classrooms filled every level. Training facilities spread across multiple wings. Dormitories housed students from every corner of the galaxy. The sounds of a dozen languages filled the air. Humans were the teachers. But not the only teachers. Velith, the Morith elder whose soul had been repaired years ago, led a department focused on crystal healing. She had spent years developing new techniques based on what the humans had done for her. Now she taught other Morith how to seal cracks and strengthen light. Her students adored her. Her light shone brighter than ever. Keth, the Varine warrior who had once been broken by grief, now helped others find their way back from the darkness. He led a program for trauma survivors, teaching them that grief was not weakness and asking for help was not shame. He had married and had cubs of his own. He told them stories about the human who had refused to give up on him. Ambassador Kelf, old now but still sharp, oversaw cultural integration. He made sure the academy respected the traditions of every species. He remembered a time when he thought broken things could never be fixed. He had been wrong, and he was glad of it. Today was a special day. The academy was holding its grand opening ceremony. Ships had come from across the galaxy to attend. The observation deck was filled with beings of every shape and color. They had all come to see something remarkable. They had come to see Engineer Yuna. She was old now. Her hair had turned white. Her fingers still carried oil stains that never fully washed away. She walked slowly, leaning on a cane. But her eyes were bright and her smile was warm. The crowd parted for her as she made her way to the podium. The motto of the academy hung behind her in 100 different languages. The same words, repeated over and over. Nothing is beyond repair. Yuna looked out at the crowd. She saw Varine and Morith, Fenny and Hollow, humans and species she had never met before. All of them had come here because of a story. A story that had started with a broken toy. In the front row sat Nira, Kelf's daughter, now a grandmother herself. She held something in her claws. A small hovering drone, its shell marked with tiny repair scars. After all these years, it still worked. Yuna smiled at her. Nira smiled back. I have been asked many times, Yuna began, why humans fix what others throw away. Why we see value in damaged things. Why we believe that broken does not mean finished. She paused, letting her eyes move across the crowd. People tell stories about us now. They say we have magical powers. They say we can bring dead things back to life. They travel across the stars to find us, carrying their broken machines and their broken hearts. Yuna shook her head slowly. But we are not magical. We are not special. We are just people who refuse to give up. She gripped the podium with her stained fingers. You want to know our secret? Here it is. Every human alive carries cracks. Every single one of us has been broken at some point. We have lost loved ones. We have failed at things that mattered. We have fallen down and wondered if we could ever get back up. Her voice grew stronger. But we do get up. We put ourselves back together. We help each other hold the pieces in place. And because we know what it means to be broken, we cannot turn away from others who are broken too. She pointed at the motto behind her. Nothing is beyond repair. We believe this because we have to believe it. If broken things cannot be fixed, then what hope is there for any of us? So we try, we fail sometimes. We succeed sometimes. But we always try. She looked at Nira again. 40 years ago, a little cub came to my station with a broken toy. I fixed it because that is what I do. I did not know that this small act would change the galaxy. I did not know that species across the stars would hear about it and find hope. I was just a tired engineer doing her job. Her eyes grew wet. But that is how change happens, isn't it? Not through grand gestures and mighty speeches. Through small kindnesses. Through refusing to give up on things that others have abandoned. Through believing, even when it seems foolish, that everything deserves a second chance. She stepped back from the podium. I am too old now to fix many things. My hands shake. My eyes are not as sharp as they used to be. But I can teach. I can show you what I know. And you can take that knowledge and spread it across the stars. She looked at the students gathered in the academy. Young beings from every species, eager to learn. Do not try to be heroes. Do not try to save everyone. Just do what you can, where you are, with what you have. Fix the broken toy. Heal the wounded soul. Stay with the grieving until they find their way back to the light, she smiled. That is all I ever did. And look what happened. The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It grew and grew until it filled the entire station. Beings who had never clapped before tried to copy the humans. The sound was strange and beautiful, a mixture of claws and tentacles and crystal chimes all coming together. Yuna bowed her head. She was crying now. She had never imagined that fixing a child's toy would lead to this. She had never imagined that humans would become the healers of the galaxy. But here they were. After the ceremony, Nira found Yuna sitting alone on a bench overlooking the stars. The old woman was tired but happy. The drone hovered beside Nira, beeping softly. It still works, Nira said. After all these years, it still works. Yuna reached out and touched the drone gently. You took good care of it. I took care of it because you taught me that it mattered. That broken things could be made whole again. That nothing should be thrown away just because it is damaged. Nira sat beside the old woman. I told everyone about what you did. I never stopped telling the story. I wanted the whole galaxy to know that humans were different. That they did not give up on things the way other species did. And now look at us, Yuna said. Teaching the galaxy to heal itself. I never imagined this when I fixed your toy. That is the thing about kindness, Nira said. You never know how far it will spread. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Years later, when Yuna died peacefully in her sleep, the galaxy mourned. Ships from every species came to pay respects. They hung above Earth in silent formation. Their lights dimmed in honor dot on every station, every ship, every world where the Restoration Academy had reached. People hung small plaques. The plaque showed a simple image, a child's toy. Crudely repaired, still flying, beneath the image. In 100,000 languages, were the words that had started everything. Everything deserves a second chance. The humans had given the galaxy a gift. Not technology. Not wealth. Not power. Something far more valuable. They had given them hope, and the galaxy would never forget.